Hello and welcome to part 2 of our walkthrough of cloud data center networking in Zettagrid. Okay, so let's jump into our data center. What I've done in between the first video and this one is I've deployed a new vApp with a new virtual machine. What I want to do in this video is show you some basic functionality of the Edge Gateway and also show you about Org VDC networks and how to create additional Org VDC networks in addition to the example one that was created at the outset. So let's take a look at this vApp just to get a bit of familiarization with this. It's a basic LAMP server deployed from our templates. As you can see now, the vApp diagram contains the virtual machine only. So what you're seeing here is no network connected. You're seeing a NIC on the VM, but it's not connected or has an IP address. So if we go to the properties of that VM under hardware, you'll see that the network card exists, but it's not connected and there's no network. So when you first create a VM, you actually have the option to connect it to a network directly. And in normal circumstances, if this was an established data center, you would actually connect the network through to an existing Org VDC network. But what I'm going to do here is actually go through and configure some basic services on the edge and then apply them to the VM in question. So let's go back to Edge Gateways. Let's click on Edge Gateway Services. And you can see here that you've got your options, you've got your configuration options here. So we've got DHCP, we've got NAT, we've got your firewalling, static routing, which you probably will not use, and which you probably won't use unless you've got a specific use case for it, VPN connectivity, and load balancing. So what we're going to do here first is go back to administration and go to Org VDC networks, and we're actually going to create a new Org VDC network. So you've got a couple of options here. Create an isolated network within the virtual data center. A typical use case for that might be if you want to do heartbeating between different VMs. What we're going to do here though is create a routed network by connecting to an existing Edge gateway. So we're going to select the Edge gateway that we provisioned earlier, and we're going to give it some details. So again, one of the big changes that we've introduced in the last couple of months is the ability here to specify your own IP address. Previously we locked this down and gave you an Org VDC network that was pre-configured. So let's go in and put some IP details in here. The option to use DNS is checked. What that effectively means is that we will use the DNS settings of the Edge Gateway, which has been predefined, and it's typically the DNS that Zettagrid customers use in any case. So you still have the option to put a secondary DNS in here, so let's be a little bit cheeky and put Google's DNS in here, not that you would. But we definitely want to put an IP pool in here. So effectively what we're doing here is creating a pool of IPs which can be allocated to VMs as they come along. Let's create a small pool for this purpose. Let's give it a name, something that's meaningful. And mentioned in the previous video, you have this option to share the network with this entire organization, which means that any organization and virtual data center and VMs within those can actually share this Org VDC network. And we're going to finish and let it create. And we're done. Okay, so what you've got here is a basic information for the Org VDC network that you just created, the gateway address, the subnet, and the IP pool usage at the moment, and who the owner is. So what I also want to do here is point out that if you actually want to delete this example network, you're fully able to do that. Now the only thing stopping you from deleting this network is if there were VMs connected to it. Because there's not, we can safely delete that network. Okay, let's go back to our VM that we created earlier. And now let's connect it to the Org VDC network. Let's connect it. Let's add a network. And we want to connect it to an Org VDC network. And let's select the example one that we've created, and let's click on Finish. So what you can see now is we've got the network named, it's a primary NIC and it's connected. So the other options that you've got here is the IP mode, whether it's a static IP pool, a static manual, or a DHCP. Okay. So what this means here is that a static IP pool will basically take the IP from the pool that we've created earlier. That was at 10.10.2 to 10.10.10. You can actually override that and specify a manual IP address if you like. Obviously it needs to be within that subnet for routing to work. And the third option is DHCP. So I'm actually going to select DHCP. Not that it's a good idea to have your servers pick up their IP addresses from DHCP, but for the purpose of this video, I'm going to select that. The MAC address is automatically generated. You have got the option to reset it if you do run into issues, but it's not recommended. Let's click OK. And now what you see here is that you've got a diagram which has been a little bit more complete. You see that you've got the vOrg network here, and because the machine isn't powered on, it's still not connected. If we click through, you'll see that the VMs are listed and their network is also listed. So let's go in and configure DHCP on the Edge gateway. We want to configure Edge gateway services. We want to enable DHCP. So let's add, and you can see that we're going to enable it. We're going to apply it to the org VDC network that we just created, and we're going to give it an IP range. So the IP range needs to be different to the IP pool range that we gave the org VDC network, otherwise they will conflict. Let's go a little higher. Let's not make it too large. And hit OK. And let's click on OK here. Okay, so what we're going to do is go back to the VM, and let's start this VM up. Okay, so because this is now connected to the DHCP enabled org VDC, we should pick up an IP address, which will hopefully be reported as soon as the VM boots up. So let's just come back when that VM is ready. Okay, so looking at the VM that's booted up, we can see that we have actually been allocated IP addresses from the DHCP pool. So that ends part 2. In the next video, what we're going to do is go through the Edge Gateway services and configure some NAT and firewall rules.